So first thing I'm going to do is pull the electric parking brake motor off. This is it right here. They tell you, some people tell you disconnect the connector. I'm not messing with that connector. It has two screws. One's here, one's right back here on the back on the other side. I can't get the camera down there worth a toot, but it's right there. They're right here and right here, right down there in the back. It's a 5mm on here. See, 5mm. There's 5mm right there, H5, and that will take these both off as soon as I reverse my ratchet. See, they come right off, no problem. This is the top one. I get down here to the bottom one, and I'm going to switch hands. And there it is, right down in there. Geez, if I can find myself. Can you see me? Yeah, right there. You can see it down in there. There it is, right there. See, I'm on it. That's the bottom one. Spins loose. It's loose now, finger tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull them off, and then I'll be back. I'll add, once I got them loose with my ratchet, I just use a 5mm ball head wrench. See, and I can spin this right out. Watching out for that brake line. See, I'll spin this one out. It's out already. See, there's that. And then the backside one, same thing. I have to get down here with my camera again, which probably isn't going to work worth a toot, but yeah, maybe you can see it there. And this one, you got to watch out for some stuff too. It's a longer wrench. Maybe you have a shorter one. Maybe you just have fingers that'll reach back there. I don't know. Mine won't. I'm 61 years old, hoping I can just work till I die, because that's how long I have to work, since one of the big three automakers, I won't tell you, GM, the one I work for, that took my pension away. But so there you go. There's the motor. It's off. See, now I'm just going to take it and lay it right back here, and it lays right there nice. It's out of there. You can see the splines. That's the splines that you need to line back up when you get ready to put it back on. There's an O-ring. This one came off with the motor. The last time it stayed stuck on the back of the caliper, which is the face of the caliper right here. And then I'll show you this once I get this off. And it's going to come off with just taking this bolt right here. I got, these are two 14mm bolts, one right here and one right down here. So that's there and there. And then that will come off. And at that time, the brake pads will come right out on this baby. So this one, I've done absolutely nothing to this yet. I haven't practiced on it or rehearsed for a video or nothing. But see there, I got it on there, and just boom, it's loose already. Piece of cake. And again, this is a 2014, so this is almost 8 years old to me. I bought it brand new. See, and that one's loose right there. Now I'll go ahead and spin these off, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I switched out, and once I got them loose with my short 12-point socket, I grabbed my long 12-point socket here. It just happens to be, it doesn't matter. And because it's easier to hold on to, and I reached back here and spun the bolts out. So the bolts are out of the caliper. There's one, there's two, and now the caliper will probably come off. It might be a little bit because, yeah, it's wiggling. See? Let me get it off of here. I'll be back. I just keep pausing because I don't have someone to hold a camera, and this is a cell phone. But I just wiggled it and pulled it off, and you can see it's pretty well extended, but you can see that rubber boot I'm talking about right there, and you can see the piston. The other one looks like crap compared to this. I was able to still get it back together. Okay, here's the spline right here that for the motor, and this is what you have to back this off to be able to reset it so that it'll work when you put it back together. So, and it just so happens that this is either a 6 or 7mm socket or Allen wrench just drops right in that baby and lines right up with the splines. Now you turn this clockwise, not counterclockwise. I've seen videos where a guy's showing he's turning it backwards. You turn it clockwise, and what it's doing is like it's trying to screw in. Of course, it's not going to screw in because it's not a screw. What it's doing though is it's screwing into the piston, and it's retracting the plate inside there or whatever that pushes the piston out when the brakes are applied. Now I turned it like about 10 turns, and it hits a hard stop. You shouldn't break this, boom, it hits a stop and it's done right there. So now that I've done that, if you look down here, you'll see that you think, oh, I screwed the piston back in. No, I didn't screw it in yet. You still have to compress the piston, but the piston doesn't compress that hard. I did go get a clamp and put on it, a big clamp, just because that's what I had handy. I put a big clamp on. I put a socket over the spline area back here. I put a big oversized socket against this, and then put my clamp on the outside of the socket, and then put the other side of my clamp reached right down in here, and then I just squeezed it like that. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll show it to you once I got it on there. Okay, so I was able to lay this caliper right here. This is the driver's side, so it's a little different on the other side, but I'm able to lay this right here, and it'll set there. I'm not holding it. It is set there, and you see I have a big C-clamp. I put a big oversized socket back here that sits flat on the metal and doesn't touch the spline area. And then the other end of the clamp, it just sits right there in the groove of the caliper right here. It's got like a U shape, and it goes right against the piston. And then I just turn this in, but I'm gonna have to hold it while I'm doing it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and shut the camera off for a second, but I'll just retract this piston, and yeah, I'm gonna have to shut it off. Okay, I was able to get it to lay down in here, kind of against the shock area there, and it's like, yeah, I'm turning it right now. I'm just turning it slowly, and the piston is slowly retracting in. I mean, I'm turning it very slowly, not in a hurry here, and it'll stop. It just definitely stops, just like the Allen wrench did when I was screwing the motor in. It just gets to a point and it just stops right there. It just stopped. It's not turning anymore. I know it's done. It looks way better than the other one. This was all a twisted, wrinkled mess on the other one, and if any caliper needed to be replaced, it would have been that one. But anywho, so that's done. So now I'm just going to take the clamp off. Now I pulled the clamp off, and you see that the piston stays back right where it needs to be. So then the only thing about this, now I'm just going to carefully hang this down here out of the way. The hose hangs straight down, so they tell you, oh, don't support it by the hose. You're going to ruin it. No, just lay it down there carefully. It's hanging there carefully. Okay, it's not, the hose is straight. It's not kinked or anything. My next hassle is, well, it's not really a hassle. First, you pull these two bolts off, well, not these, right here. You got two 10 or 12. I'll check it and I'll let you know. Okay, so these are 12 millimeters bolts that hold the rest of this brake pad assembly on, and I'm changing my rotor, so I need to pull this off. If you didn't need to change your rotor, because these aren't in great shape, and I changed the other one, so I'm going to change this one. So if you weren't changing your rotor, you wouldn't have to do this at all. You would simply take your pads out, which you can see right here. Look, I just snapped that one right out, and that back one snaps right out too. You don't have to pull anything clear off. Now look, this one's still messed up too. Look, it's got two layers to it. Even though this one is applying pressure over a wider area, it's still missing this 1/2 inch right here. That's probably at least 3/8 to a 1/2 inch that I'm missing on the braking action. I don't understand that, why this car is doing that, but this is the first time I messed with the brake. So now, since I have to pull my rotor off, if you're changing rotors, then if you were just changing pads, you would just need you pop these little guides off, these little slides, and replace those with your pads and apply new brake grease to them, and put your new pads in there, and you'd put the caliper back onto it, and then you would put the motor back on, and which I'll get to that later. But I'm changing the rotor, so I have to pull this whole assembly off to get the rotor off. There's one bolt up here. They're 12 millimeter bolts. I've got my little socket sitting on this one, the top one. The bottom one, however, which nobody showed me in any videos, it's down in here behind this arm right here, and I don't know the name of the darn thing, but it comes over from over there. It just goes right here, and it keeps the wheel straight. Okay, and but it's right here. But you have to pull out this bolt and take this nut off and pull this bolt out to push this down out of the way to get to the other bolt, which is down inside there. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to work on this, and I'll show you more. Okay, so I already popped this 12 millimeter bolt loose on the top of the brake pad assembly. And so this one's simple. I'll get it out of there in a minute. What I'm going to show you is this one right here that takes a 19 millimeter wrench I put on the back side on the nut right there. And then I happen to have what's handy, a short 19 millimeter socket will work. I have a 1/2 inch breaker bar here. It's about 16 inches long, maybe 15, 16 inches long. And I have a deep socket handy, so that's the one I'm using, but I think a short one worked on the other side, but I only use the 3/8 ratchet on that one. But now I got to get this loose, and I have bad elbow problems, so hang on. This one seems to be much tighter than the one on the other side. And it made a real good sound the first pop I got on it, but now I'm getting it. Okay, so, and the wrench holds itself there. So I'll get this off. I'll be back in a second. So you can keep twisting this with the socket sometimes. The screw's got a thread all the way out of there. You know, it'll slide out. It just kind of gets stuck in there a little bit at an angle. So, or you can take like I did, put a screwdriver in here or maybe in this little hole and just wiggle it around here and there to get it to pull out. Now I'm gonna see if it'll just pull out of there now. I got it, see, I got it loose and it just pulled right out of the hole. See, it's pretty long. It just pulled right out. Okay, and then there's the nut. And the nut had a washer. Okay, so I'll just save those right there. And then this bar, now you can see it moves around. You can see that. Now I'm gonna just push that bar down.
What happened?
So I gotta get a block of wood. Okay, so I got my 2 bolts. I got the bolt out down in there. See, I just push that down, pull the bolt out. This comes off. It's right here. This just pulls out now. Now I can take off these clips. See, they just snap off there. It's really easy compared to a lot of brakes I've worked on in my life. Now I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna blast this with my pressure washer, and then I'll re-grease these, pull these out, re-grease them, and put them back in there. And then the next I have to do is pull these 2 screws, 2 Phillips screws out right here in this rotor. One stripped out on the other side. I drilled the thing out, put the other one back in it. I don't even see a purpose in them. Once you apply, put your wheel on it, put your lug nuts on there, it can't go anywhere anyway, so it doesn't make any sense. Some engineer mess, but you can see on this other side probably how this isn't worn properly.
No.
Okay, so to get those screws out, what I wind up having to do, because this will spin, is I had to put this, I just put a board in between there, and now when I put pressure on it, see, it's wedged to the ground, holds it in place. I have an impact driver. I put a number 3 bit on my impact driver, and then I got lucky on this side. Like I said, one of the other ones I just drilled it off on the other side and just put one in, but these here with my impact driver, they just spun right out of there. 2 of them. Took the board out, spun around, put the board back in here, spun the other one out. Now, this is a hassle because the rotors still won't come off. They're frozen on. They've been there 8 years. So now I'm going to apply some sledgehammer action. I'm going to beat the crap out of it and I'll be back.
Yeah.
Is it on?
Yeah.
So one thing I forgot to tell you was my wife's holding my camera now so I can put my dirty gloves back on and do this. Is you have to put this bolt back in, this long bolt back in that bar, because otherwise when you start beating on this, the wheel tries to come off the car. It's only held on the front. So you have to put this back in, and I took my piece of 2x4, I put it right underneath here and tap this bar back up in there. Line the hole back up. This is pretty self-explanatory for anybody that's got half a mechanical mind to work on things. And I just get my hole lined up. I use a screwdriver, wiggle around in there until I get that lined up, and then tap that back in. It might be best to twist it a little bit just to make sure you don't booger up your threads. But it's good to get it all the way into that second, the other side of the wheel piece. And now I'm pushing on the socket and just twisting it, and it's going in there. And that's good enough. It's going into the hole. I see it sticking out the other side. So now I can wham on this thing with a sledgehammer. And now it's just, took me 5 or 10 minutes of beating on the other side. And there, this one I got real lucky. It just popped right off. And again, you see on this side how wide the brake pad has been applied to this side. The other side is much narrower. It's missing a 1/2 inch. I don't understand why it's worked that way since the car was new. So now we can clean this up some. I don't have to do nothing to this one. I'll get my new rotor out and we'll be ready to put her back on. So No, you don't have to record that thing off of there. If there's any oil on it, it eats it off because you don't want oil on that. If you get oil, it attracts dirt. So here's my new one. I'll go ahead and line up these screw holes, which is like this on here. Put this baby on there without touching the shiny part the pad's gonna touch. Anybody that's done brakes before knows you're not supposed to touch that. I'm applying a little, if it decides to squirt, there, putting a little bit of stuff on these screws, put these screws back in. Okay, I got them started. Now we'll use the handy dandy speedy. Bam bam. They don't have to be cranked on there. They can't even come off anyway once you put the wheel on. Okay, that's done. All right, now I'm gonna get this back out, take this bolt back out of here, and I'll be back in a minute. So I don't know about your brakes, but most of them I think come with these little guides, which will replace these nasty looking things. And then I'll put these on there. I've cleaned this thing up. I blasted with a pressure washer, just get loose stuff off that's might be in that little crack there and stuff. I've checked these already. The other ones I disassembled them on the other side and I lubed them. But these here, they feel really fine, not better than the other side. And I popped them out of the boot and slid them out, and they got real nice clean grease in there, so I just put them back in. And then I'm gonna got the brake lubricant here. I'll put that on these slides, and I'll put these slides on here, make sure they're all lubed up. Then I'll be ready to put this back on. Okay, so I got the clips on. I lubed them up in the cracks there. I'm gonna shut my light off on my camera. I guess it won't let me, but anywho, the grease is in there. I've put this on already. You have to push the arm back down to get this other bolt in here and get this bolt started, and then get your socket on it and tighten them down. I'll do that. Okay, so I got the brake holder, whatever they want to call it, in there. So now I'm just putting the pads in. This pad does not have the squealer, so that was that simple. Boom, it's in there. Now this is the inside pad. It has the squealer on it. It's just the way I took them off. That's the way they were. So now I'm just going to put this one in the bottom groove. Go up here pushing down to make sure the bottom one is down. Then push this into the top. But it's going to take me 2 hands, so I'll be back in a second. It was no problem. I just needed 2 hands just to get that corner in there a little bit and just bloop right in. Okay, so now I'm ready to put the caliper back on, and then the motor. Okay, I forgot. I'm not putting the caliper and the motor back on just yet. I got to put this arm back up in here. So I'll do that first with the long bolt and the washer on the other side with the nut on the washer. Like so. Okay, so I'll get that put on with the 19 millimeter socket and the 19 millimeter wrench. I know you won't be able to see me here in a second, but there I got my socket on there and I got my wrench on the back, and I'm going to tighten this. So now you can't see me, but you can still, I'm saying I don't have torque specs for this stuff. So you kind of get a feel when you break it loose how it was, and that's kind of how I'm putting it back together. I do have a torque wrench, and I did put some torque on some things. This big bolt I'm putting in here right now, I think I put 75 or 80 foot-pounds on that. And so I got it tightened up by hand as much as I'm going to get it. So now my bolt's in here. I torqued these to 40 foot-pounds. The ones down inside here that are holding the brake holder on, I torqued this one up here. It's 12 millimeters. I torqued that, and the one back behind this arm, I torqued those to 40 foot-pounds, and it felt good, and I couldn't get it any tighter by hand with even bumping it with the palm of my hand. I think I'm only going to put these with the brake caliper. I only put these at 20 foot-pounds on here. I put no torque. I just tightened what felt good on the Allen screws that hold the motor on the back here. And then this big one, I'm going to torque it to 80 foot-pounds. And you do what you want or find the specs yourself, but it all feels good to me. Since I have no good way to hold this stuff, I'm not going to be able to really show you this, but you just have to make sure the motor only goes on one way. And you just need to make sure that when you put it on there, that you turn a little bit one side to the other to make sure that those splines on that motor line up with the splines in the caliper. So I'm going to put that on there, but I don't think there's any way I'm going to hold this so you can see it. But my goodness, it's heck on a 61-year-old guy's knees, I'll tell you that. Let me see. I don't think there's any way I'm going to be able to. I'll prop this up here. I don't know if you can see it or if you're not seeing it, but then I can turn this. I can put this motor on there and it kind of points to the up, points up in the air if you was to have the caliper on, and then you just turn it a little bit back and forth and it drops right on there. And then it feels good. Get a screw started in it. There's one screw. And then I'll get the other one and then but you can see it goes together. It fits down there nice and snug on there, and I just turn it back forth just a little bit, ever so slightly. The brake line goes down towards the bottom when it's on the wheel, and of course the connector lines up just right for the wires. So that's it. Now my outside pads and my replacement pads have these two little pins on the outside pad. So they also came with just two of these plates. So I would only be one for each set of pads. Well, the plate can't fit here because of those two pins. It won't set flat, but the inside pad, it doesn't have those pins on it. So I guess in my case, this has to go on the back brake pad, and it snaps into that little spot right there. See, I've got the spot on this one, but yet those pins are in the way. So it only fits the back. So I got that snapped on. Now I'm going to slide the caliper over it. Now I got the brake caliper slid over the shoes, and it's lined up so I can put my bolt in this hole and this hole. And these are the 14mm bolts that go back in here. I believe I'm not lying to you. I will confirm that. And it is yes, the 14mm to hold that back. Okay, so I got, it's all on there. See, she spins nice. So I've got my caliper bolts right here going to my brake holder, torqued to 20 foot-pounds. I did not torque the Allen screws holding the motor on right here and down on the back. I torqued the big bolts holding the brake holder to the hub assembly down here and up there to 20 foot-pounds, or 40 foot-pounds rather, and then I torqued this big bolt right here holding that arm on that I told you about. I torqued that sucker to 75, 80 foot-pounds. And now I'm going to check the brake. So we'll check the e-brake. So now it spins. I'll get in it. My car's filthy. I'll start her up. I started her up. The brakes are off. And the wheel spins. Now I'm going to set the parking e-brake and we'll listen. You hear it? And now it's set. And look, it works. It doesn't turn. I'll check it, when I get it all together on the road, obviously. And my parking brake light's on now. Listen. It's off. It's on. It's off. And now I'll come back out here and she spins again. And there you go. Amen. Hallelujah. And that took me, let me check the time. Took me just about an hour to do this side. And that was taking this over, pressure washing it, cleaning up the pieces, lubing some screws. I spent almost an hour on this one side here. Maybe I could do it in 45 minutes, and of course I could get quicker and quicker. The other one took considerably longer because it was the first one I did, and I kind of had a learning thing on it. I had a screw stripped, I had it stripped out, and I had to drill it, and then I Like I said, the boot looked like crap on the other side, so I had to mess with it for a little bit, and then I had to figure out that I had to take that arm out of there to get that other bolt out. So there you go. Have fun working on your 2014 Kia Optima SXL Turbo with e-parking brakes. Dealership probably want $1,000 just to do what I just did right here on this side in 45 minutes. And I've got $13 in a rotor. I wish I could tell you the name of the place I bought that off of the internet. I got $13 in a rotor and $8 in a set of brake pads. So for like $56, I bought rotors and brake pads for both sides of the car. No, maybe it was less than that, with free shipping. So, and they wanted $625 for a caliper that I did not even have to replace. There you go. Go Kia. Go to the dealership if you got lots of money. See ya.